Hey everyone, Joseph Zabrowski here. Going to give you a Good Friday major message. That's the title of this, I think. So anyways, let's go right down the biz. So right here this is both for Christians and non-Christians. I'm just trying to share history with you. This is the actual tomb of Jesus, okay? This is where it happened. As you can see here, some deconstruction went on, and so they constructed it in a very brutish way. You know, just put a bunch of blocks there for such a significant site. But it's in keeping with the beauty of how Jesus Christ was born in a barn, in a manger, a smelly barn with farm animals and like, so it would make sense that they would repair the very tomb that he is in with just some blocks in this kind of, way that they did it. Anyways, as you can see here is a groove. And in that groove, I'll give you a close-up of it. That's the groove right there, okay? In that groove is where the round stone was laid, and the round stone rolled in front of the entrance, okay? So they actually had this stone in this groove, and it would roll in front of the entrance, okay? So that's where this is strewn out of rock. This is near Golgotha, about 90 meters outside of Golgotha, and this is where he laid. This is part of history. I'm showing you this. This is actually the tomb where he laid, okay? And word is that he rose again from the dead 3 days later. And it was recorded in the Gospels, 4 different Gospels written by Matthew, Luke, Mark, and John. So Matthew was a tax collector, Luke was a doctor, Mark was like an apostle, and John was considered the youngest of them all, and he was a disciple of Jesus. They say the one whom Jesus loved the most. I don't know if that's true, but that's kind of how it says it in the gospel. Okay, so anyways, this is part of history. Now, this is in a book called the Holy Bible, and the Holy Bible has been the bestseller every year since its inception, okay? Now, every year, that means that over the last 2,000 years, it is by far the greatest seller. I mean, some people like to call the Bible a fairy tale. And you got to ask yourself, why would such a fairy tale be the bestseller every year since its inception? Okay, it's just a fairy tale. I mean, I don't know of many fairy tales that they get that kind of play. I mean, there must be something more to it, as in truth, than it being just a fairy tale, okay? So now, furthermore, something to consider for yourself. Okay, wait, I just want to show you this. Okay, this is where he actually laid. This is inside the tomb, all right? And I want to share this with you. Okay, of Jesus' 12 apostles, 6 weeks after he rose again, those apostles went into Jerusalem where he was killed, okay? They went into Jerusalem confidently preaching God, preaching that Jesus had risen, preaching that all the miracles that he did, preaching the very things that he said, okay, preaching the truth of Jesus. Now you got to ask yourself, okay, maybe out of the 12 apostles, maybe 1 or 2 of them were kind of cuckoo. I don't think that's the truth, but you could say that as an argument. But all 12 go back into Jerusalem to preach the gospel? Okay, and they gave up their lives to do it? Okay, let me show you this. So what happened to those apostles? Let's read right now, okay? Peter and Paul they were all martyred for the most part, except one, John. And I'm going to just kind of quickly go over how they were martyred. Okay, Peter was beheaded. Paul was crucified upside down on a cross because he didn't think he was worthy of dying on a cross like Jesus, so he was crucified upside down. Andrew, after preaching in the Soviet Union, they said that he was crucified as well. Thomas, from the spears of 4 different soldiers, he was killed for preaching the gospel. Philip, cruelly put to death, arrested and cruelly put to death for preaching the gospel. Matthew was stabbed to death in Ethiopia. Some say that he wasn't martyred. Bartholomew met his death as a martyr for the gospel as well, says. James, the Jewish historian, he said that he was stoned and then clubbed to death for preaching the gospel. Simon the Zealot, he refused to sacrifice to some idol called the sun god, and he wasn't going to do it because he knew who the real God was, and so he was killed for that. Matthias was killed by burning with Andrew, and John was the only one who didn't die a brutal death. So you got to ask yourself, why would these men give up everything? Why would all 12, 11 out of the 12 go to the point of being killed? And why, furthermore, why would millions of men and women thereafter also be martyred for Jesus Christ and the gospel? Why? Is it just some crazy, is it a cult? Is that what it is? Okay, well, you think about it. If it's a cult, you go ahead and do the research. But you got to ask yourself, I mean, something you don't want to be wrong about, right? I mean, this is a really important question. If Jesus Christ is the Son of God, then, and you mistake that he is not, that's a pretty big mistake to be making. I mean, we can make mistakes in life. I can choose the wrong, the wrong dinner when I go out to eat. I can choose the wrong color on this, my car or whatever. But this is a mistake that you don't want to make, because this has eternal consequences. It's worth looking into. I just encourage you to look into it. Furthermore, if you look at, say, for example, the popes over the last 2,000 years, okay? Do you know that 37 of the popes have been martyred? And typically, of those 37 popes, most of them were at the hands of political entities for standing up for the truth. Now, this is where I'm going to kind of transition into, the first part of this was for people who don't believe in God, and even for people who believe in God, but first and foremost, it was for people who don't believe in God. Now I'm going to kind of transition. The rest of this is for actual Christians, okay? And, I kind of left off by saying that we have 37 popes who were martyred for standing up against political entities. Most of them were martyred at the hands, as most of the disciples were. They were martyred by political entities, all right, for standing up for the truth against, they lived in a monarchical system back then. Kings, tyrants, okay? And when you talk about Jesus, you talk about freedom. And freedom comes against tyranny. It's just Jesus and tyranny just don't work, because Jesus is free-spirited. He's freedom. And tyranny is the opposite of freedom, okay? So, many people who go to church today, Christians, we look at it as a, it's a refuge. I love going to church because it's such a refuge, and it just makes me feel so good. And that's great. That's the way it's supposed to make us feel. It's phenomenal. Church should be a great place of refuge. It should be one of the greatest places of refuge, okay? But churches are not just places of refuge. Over history, churches have been the moral pillars in societies. If you go to Europe, I went to Kapolch, Hungary. It was a long time ago. It was one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. It's the southern country in Hungary, and what's really cool about that place is that you'll go from village to village, and it's so beautiful, and they've got hills, and you know that you're coming to a new village, because you'll see in the center of every village is a church, and it's on the highest peak. They always built the church on the highest peak, and it's at the very center of each village, okay? Which speaks volumes. Okay, it's like this is the moral pillar in our society. We put it at the very center of our village, and we build the whole village around the church. And you go from one village to the next. I encourage you to go to Kapolch. It's amazing. To this day, I think it's the most beautiful place I've ever been. It may have changed by now, but it's been many years. But it's just like that. Each village has the church at the highest. It's on the highest hill, and the whole village is built around that church. It's so beautiful. It's unbelievable. Anyways, the point that I'm making is that, the church is not just a place of refuge. It's supposed to be the pillar of morality and righteousness in every community, okay? And I personally don't think that that's really happening. I think that the church is definitely a place of refuge, but it's not the church is not standing up in its community for what is right. especially now many think we live in end times, and there's a lot of proof that would say that. If you know that the Bible is a book of prophecy, and I think it's like 2,500 of the prophecies have already come to pass out of all the prophecies in the Bible. Maybe not 2,000 of the 2,500, I think it is. And at any rate, that speaks volumes, okay? And it speaks that we're near the end. There's all kinds, if you read Revelation, you know about the RFID chip that's already been created to put in people's hands or in their forehead and use it at the market. It's the mark of the beast. That's already been created. That would indicate that we are in end times. And there's a fight for good between good and evil in end times. We live in an antichrist system. All you have to do is just go to Yahoo and read the news, and you'll see the antichrist system that we live in. We have a lying machine establishment in America and the world. They've infiltrated. The establishment is the antichrist system. They are the apostate throughout the world, and then they are actually the swamp that President Trump is cleaning out. But you know, President Trump cannot clean that swamp out by himself. He needs we the people to help him clean it out. He'll never clean it out by himself, you guys. We all have to be part of it. Now, I know of a lot of Christians. I talk to Christians. You know, not just talk to them. I hear them speak, and I see that there's a misunderstanding. There's a confusion. A lot of Christians, many of us Christians live in the world, and we're brainwashed by the world, and we think that, and we also, you know, whether we read the Bible or we just go to church and we don't read the Bible, we think that we focus on the center of the gospel, which is Jesus Christ dying on the cross. And many times in our churches, we'll go to church during this time of the year, Good Friday, and they replay how Jesus, the meek and mild one, during his crucifixion, you know, he didn't really say much. He just kind of went along with it, and he was martyred like a sheep. He was just like a sheep who went to the slaughter. It's really how it was. If you ever watch the different movies on Jesus Christ, a lot of them portray it in a really good way. You see how he just was like a sheep going to the slaughter. And so that's the focal point for a lot of Christians. They look at Jesus Christ. That's the one thing they focus on, and rightly so, because it's the greatest thing that he ever did for us. In keeping with his greatness, he died for all of humanity. But here's the thing where people get confused. Okay, you and I, although we are called by Jesus Christ in the Gospels to be imitators of Christ, to be ambassadors of Christ, that means representatives of Christ, you and I are not Jesus Christ. Thus, we do not have the call on our life that Jesus Christ had on his life. Jesus Christ died for all of humanity, okay? That is not my call. That is the greatest call in the history of the world, okay? And it's already been done. He already did it for us. And in the process of doing that, guess what? He gave us life. He gave us freedom, okay? And so it is all of our calls to stand up for that freedom, especially in the very epicenter of freedom in the world, America, which is like the beacon of light to the world. It used to be, okay? We are the only country that's called one nation under God. We are the great rebel of the world. We are the country that broke away from the monarchical system and who kind of has been standing alone, the great rebel of the world, a light on a hill, okay? But America over the years has been infiltrated by this evil establishment, and they have used America as a faceplate to the rest of the world, okay? And so what am I getting at here? I was saying that there are many confused Christians who think that, you know, when they look at Jesus, they look at just his crucifixion, which is the most important thing to look at. But to really get a good grasp, a good vision of Jesus, you got to read the rest of the gospel, and you will see that Jesus did many other things. Okay, he didn't. Dying on the cross was the major thing that he did, and is the focal point. But he did a lot of other things. Okay, when you look at Jesus the person, he was a carpenter. You know what I mean? He actually came against people in the temple. He turned over the tables. Most people know that. Most Christians know that. You know, he called the woman at the well a dog. You know what I mean? I mean, he was a man who knew what work was. Probably one of the hardest jobs that you could do physically as a carpenter. He worked by the sweat of his brow. He went through all the greatest adversities that any of us could face, to face death himself, and faced great betrayal of his very disciples, who kind of vanished as he was going through his trials. I mean, it's like at the very depth of his his time of the greatest thing that he did, they all ran away from him. They disowned him like Peter, right? So, I mean, Jesus was a strong man, okay? And the point is that many Christians are confused. They think that when darkness comes into this gift, Jesus gave us life, okay, life that we're supposed to uphold. And when darkness infiltrates this life, many Christians will rationalize and say, well, I'm just going to be like Jesus, and I'm going to just stand by and not do anything. I'm not going to raise a finger or lift my voice because that's what Jesus did. No. See, that's where you're confused. That's the great confusion that I've seen so many Christians who have bought into. And whether they buy into it because they're rationalizing for themselves so that they don't have to be strong and face the real battle that's in front of all of us, or whether they do it for some other reason, it's being done. See, God gave us life that we're supposed to uphold. We're supposed to protect it because he did the work, okay? We're saved by grace, all right? He did it. And now we're supposed to uphold it. And when darkness infiltrates it, guess what? We're supposed to protect it. God's word says that we, his people, are to occupy the land until he comes. His word says that we are to protect the poor and innocent from the grasp of evil men. That means that we are supposed to be protecting the goodness that he's given us. But the big confusion for Christians, the one thing that they like to say is, well, Jesus never did anything. He was like a doormat. The doormat, merciful, mild Jesus. They can only see him in the merciful, mild place. They only can see him in the church that is a place of refuge. They don't see the church that is supposed to be the moral pillar in the community. Okay, the very center of the community. It's supposed to be standing up. They don't see the 37 popes that were martyred at the hands of political entities. They don't see the disciples who were all martyred at the hands of political entities. Well, you and I are in a political world. And I meet all kinds of Christians who say, well, I hate politics. Oh, that makes me depressed. I can't do that. Oh, that's too hard. And I'm sorry, as your brother, according to Ezekiel 3:33, we're supposed to hold each other accountable. Because if we don't hold each other accountable, then we'll be held accountable by God. Okay? When we don't hold our brother and sister accountable, read Ezekiel 3 and Ezekiel 33. You're a brother and sister in Christ, okay? I'm telling you right now, that just doesn't work. Oh, I don't like it. It makes me depressed. Get over it, okay? Get past yourself. I'm sorry to say it, but I say it because, I'm in the battle, and I have brothers and sisters of Christ who are also in the battle, and we need help, okay? And we are working, and we've given our lives. Many of us have given our lives to stand up for the truth. And while our brothers and sisters will just stand by the side and sit on their couches and watch the idiot box television and be brainwashed by this antichrist system and don't do anything. But the fight is great. God's word says the work is great, but the workers are few. And I understand what he's saying. There's a lot of work, you guys. And here, furthermore, God left us the Great Commission to make disciples of all nations. There is no better place than to step into the battle. There's no better place to lead people to Christ, okay? Because we live in such a dark world, there are many of our brothers and sisters who don't even know Christ, okay? They don't know the beauty and the love of Christ. And they're so brainwashed by the system that they are living in. And when you enter that system and you speak to them like I'm speaking to you right now, and telling them about the system and telling them about the Antichrist system, what that does is oftentimes it opens their eyes. And even though I might not lead them to Christ, I'll help them take a step toward Christ. And then God will send the next person to water that seed, and he'll educate them, and then they'll take the next step, and eventually they'll get to Christ. Okay? This battle right here in front of you, the Antichrist system that we are fighting in this political world, like this president right here, God has given us this president. He's standing up for the Constitution, and this media likes to make him out to be some kind of beast. They always show him looking like this or looking weird, lying about him 24/7. Okay, he can only clean the swamp so much. We, the people, have to be the real cleaners of that swamp. We need help. And if you're rationalizing to yourself, my friend, my brothers and sisters, if you're rationalizing to yourself, well, Jesus, when we see Jesus, he never lifted a finger. He never did anything. I mean, he never came against any authority. No, he just went along with it. You know, he never stood up for right. We need to stand up for what is right. Okay, and I've told you all these things about the popes being martyred, you know, disciples all being martyred at the hands of political entities. We live in a political world, and that political world is always testing us. They're trying to take our freedoms away. They're trying to destroy what is good. They're trying to destroy God in our culture. They're trying to take God out of our culture, while Christians stand by and they sit on their couches and they watch the idiot box television, brainwashing them 24/7. Okay. And even if you're not watching the idiot box and you don't want to help, you need to start helping, okay? Because this is the real battle. This is where souls are being lost, okay? As I said previously, you can lead people to Christ in this place because there are so many people that have gone astray. And that's our job, to lead people to Christ. So that is the message today that I'm leaving you with. And I hope you'll really think about it. You know, I hope you'll get a greater vision of Jesus Christ. Because the truth is, you know, I've given you my vision, but my vision is not 100%. God is infinite. We'll never fully understand him. If I live 1,000,000 years, I'll never fully understand him. His word is infinite. And that's why we're supposed to keep growing and growing and growing and learning and learning. But one thing for sure, we're not supposed to think it just about ourselves. The whole idea of Christianity, 2 greatest commandments, to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. If I'm going to love my neighbor as myself, that means I'm going to have to give something, like giving up my life, okay, for others. I'm supposed to forego my life to give my life for the greater call of Christ, the greater call of God. That's the whole idea here, okay? I mean, we're supposed to take the thing that we all like to look to, Jesus giving up his life, which is the center of the gospel. We're supposed to apply that to the life that he's given us. We should be willing to give up our lives for the beauty and the life and the freedom that he has given us. It doesn't mean that we just act like him when we are facing adversity against the evil pillars in this world who want to take away all of our freedom, want to take away the very things that our ancestors died to give us. Our ancestors stood up for freedom. They stood up for our Constitution, which is based on the law of nations. The law of nations is based on the Mosaic and canon law. Thus, the Constitution is a holy document. People died for that document, my friends. Are you dying for it? Because it is there's no greater fight. I tell you, this battle is greater than any battle in any church, okay? This is where the rubber meets the road. This is the real deal, okay? This is where our brothers and sisters are being misled by this world. And we need to be in there and stand up for the truth every chance that we get. That means that we're at work and somebody says some stupid thing about some, you know, oh, the Second Amendment is bad. That Second Amendment is what gave us this country that you're living in, okay? We need to be standing up. We need to take the chance and speak on behalf of the truth, because the truth is of God, and we're called to be witnesses of the truth. So I hope you'll consider it. The work is great, but the workers are few. There's a lot of work. And I have brothers and sisters that have given up their lives, and I feel like I've done the same as well. You know, we need help, okay? It's not just like life is not just about me, it's not about you either. It's not about you just getting your little car and your little house and your car, your SUV, and 2 kids and blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's all very nice. God tells us to be fruitful and multiply and do all that stuff. But we have greater things. Jesus, by the way, he wasn't married, okay? Okay, he gave up his life for a greater cause. And that's what we're to do. He's given us life, and we're supposed to sacrifice how he sacrificed. We're supposed to go through the battle like the lamb, the sacrificial lamb that he was, for the life that he's given us. Okay, don't be confused, and I'm going to end on this because this is the right place to end. The big confusion of Christians is that, okay, I'm just going to stand by and be the sacrificial lamb when darkness comes into the world. I'm right on my right and to my left, and I'm just going to go along with it because I'm not supposed to lift a hand. I'm supposed to be this just meek and mild Jesus. Well, you need to get a truer look of Jesus, because Jesus was a real man, and he fought. Okay, he worked hard. He gave up his life for his call. And his call gave us life. Now we are to uphold that life. We're supposed to give up our lives to uphold that life, just like our ancestors did. They gave us life in this country. And that's a call to you, my friends, to stand up. Get off of your couches. We are in a battle, my friends. A battle. And this president can't do it by himself. We need your help. Call your congressman. Use your talents. Speak to the people around you. Be a voice in your community. Do something. In Jesus Christ's name, amen. Happy Easter.